Max Verstappen collects the easiest 25 points he will ever receive in his life as he takes the checkered flag at the Styrian Grand Prix. Welcome to my F1 channel, welcome to Peter on Pole. My name is Peter, in pole position. Let's talk about the top 3 drivers and the top 3 worst drivers of the Styrian Grand Prix. We'll kick things off with the best drivers, of course. In third place on my podium, ladies and gentlemen, Lance Stroll. That is correct, he had a superb race, and let me tell you something, right? The long game that we spoke about with Aston Martin, it is working yet again, and this time in the favour of Lance Stroll. Qualified P10, finished P8, very comfortable, very sustainable race. He did have a bit of entertainment, if you will. There was a few cars in there. He was part of the train that Alonso was leading at one point, and he kept the car steady. Again, a nice mature drive from Lance Stroll, and great to see the Aston Martin actually growing and developing as the season is going on. So hats off to Lance Stroll. He also outperformed Sebastian Vettel, which is no mean feat, so great stuff from the Canadian. In second place, it's going to be Carlos Sainz. That's absolutely correct. He gained 6 places today. He finished P6 after starting in P12. And the Ferrari, I tell you what, it looked like a suspect car this weekend. But somehow Carlos Sainz, he was very, very good. He performed very well. And he even said after the race as well, he thought he could have done better. He was stuck behind Lewis Hamilton. Can you imagine him saying that? He unlapped himself as well, and he had his eyes on Lando Norris. He thought he could chase him down and track him down. But I tell you what, the Ferrari, which looked like a horrific start to the weekend, ended pretty well. And Carlos Sainz, I tell you what, man, you're a strange guy, because one weekend you get a performance like this out of you, but really as a whole, you know, next week we may not even see him at all, even if it's at the same circuit. He claims that there's pace in that Ferrari, and he says even the harder tyre is better for the Ferrari. So just keep an eye out on that in future races, that the harder tyre apparently is better for the Ferraris. Carlos Sainz, you've done a superb job. You got the Ferrari, you put some integrity back into the Ferrari, and you got to a top 6 finish. So shout out to Carlos Sainz. And P1, pole position, first place, number 1 on the podium. I'm going to stick with the Ferrari, Charles Leclerc. Oh my goodness, you proved me wrong. I said you were going to be the most disappointing driver of the weekend, especially in qualifying. You started in P7, but I tell you what, that first lap, there was all kinds of shenanigans going on. What the heck took place in that first lap? We had punches, we had Gasly went out, you had Latifi with some problems. I think Giovinazzi also had some issues as well. It was an absolute cluster. He went to the back of the grid, but guess where he finished? Back into 7th place. So he was the highest climber of the weekend, technically speaking, after he'd done his own mistake. But Charles, you've done a fantastic race. You've done brilliant. You powered straight through the pack there, and it was very impressive when he overtook people like Alonso and he was overtaking Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda. I was very, very much impressed with that, and then finished behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. So Charles Leclerc, I tell you what, you probably got driver of the day as well. I think he did it in terms of the votes, but I tell you what, he was my favourite driver because of the fact that he rectified from his mistakes earlier on. I don't think he was like necessarily the out and out winner, but I had to give props where it was due. No word of lie. This was the hardest top 3 I've ever done, and I understand in the comment section you lot will be saying, what about this one, what about that one? Well, let's get to the honourable mentions then, shall we? I mean, Lando Norris, for crying out loud. What a great weekend he had. I even feel deep to not even put him in his top 3. He finishes in P5. He had a brilliant qualifying session. I think he qualified P4, went up to P3 because of Bottas' situation. And then, you know, he's ahead of Bottas in the Drivers' Championship, which is, again, remarkable scenes. And it's just difficult for me to put him in there because of the other 3 that I've already given. Honourable mention goes out to Lando Norris. It doesn't finish there. Fernando Alonso, how on earth are you keeping this Alpine relevant? The guy's got back into the points. I mean, he had a good qualifying. I think he qualified in the top 10 as well. Qualified, I think, 8 or 9, and he finished 9th. I mean, fair play to the guy, man. I mean, I don't know how he's doing that, considering what the heck happened to Ocon and that Alpine. I've already discussed this situation in my preview. I said, what the heck is going on, you Renaults? Yeah, what the heck is going on? Sort out that car at the start of the season rather than when we have to wait till the end. But Alonso is clearly dragging that car to the top 10. Kimi Raikkonen, P18 to P11. How could I not mention him? I mean, this guy was piling through the mess after his qualifying was awful, was absolutely terrible. But then, you know, he finished the race really well. He finished ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, ahead of Ocon, ahead of Sebastian Vettel. When he passed Vettel, it kind of summed up that race for him. It was a very good and consistent race, so I should have definitely put him in the top 3, but it was very difficult. And considering the Western supermare that he had in the pit lane in qualifying, Valtteri Bottas was even in practice. Valtteri Bottas, my goodness, I mean, what could have been? Because at the same time, you know, he finished in P3. He actually finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton in qualifying, but obviously, because of the penalty, he had to step back a little bit. Finished P3 still nonetheless. And when you consider what kind of a weekend it all was, Valtteri Bottas actually had a strong weekend, in fairness to him. George Russell, I mean, I could be here all day. You know, what could have been for George Russell? That's all I can really say. The guy, are you an atheist? Because you need to come to Christ, okay? Because the luck you're having in Formula One as a whole, I mean, we need to rectify this situation. So, I don't know, spiritually, have a look over there. And, you know, I could say Max, you know, Max had the easiest drive of his life, so I couldn't even put him as the best. But he had an absolute cruise control. This was kind of like Hamilton-esque, if you will, where Hamilton's not even challenged. There's no one's pressuring him at all. And he ran a superb race. So shout out to Max Verstappen as well. Let's move on to the bottom 3 drivers of the Styrian Grand Prix. But before we get there, if you like content like this, please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you want more F1 content just like this. Whew, where do we begin? 3rd place, Sebastian Vettel. That is correct. P12? Sebastian, what's going on? A minute ago, we were ranting and raving about you being in the podium positions, having a good race in the points, and now what was this? I didn't make it into Q3. Stroll did, you didn't, and now you're finishing P12, getting beat by Kimi Räikkönen. Not acceptable. You need to sort it out, Mr. Sebastian Vettel. I expect better from you, so let's hope that we'll see something better next weekend, still in Austria. Number 2 on the podium of the worst driver of the weekend, I'll tell you what, Danny Ricciardo. Whew, man, starts P13, piles straight through. I think he gets up to P8, looking good, looking nice. And then all of a sudden, lost power in the car. Is that his fault? Not quite. But again, he went back into 13th place. I think he finished the race in 13th place, if I can remember. And it's just, for me, it's uninspiring from Danny Ricciardo. And what's more concerning is he doesn't know quite what the problem is. In years past, when he was at the Red Bull, when he was at the Renault, and he wasn't performing well, everybody would say, you know what, the car wasn't doing too good. It was something wrong with the car. Fair play. But the McLaren car is good. It is decent. It is comfortably 3rd in the Constructors' title. And yet, what am I getting here from Danny Ricciardo? And I think that's probably even harder to sort of rectify, because the car is there. So what are you doing that's wrong? You have to adapt to this very, very quickly. You've got to be quick off the mark, Danny. Otherwise, Lando Norris is just going to leave you for dust, because Lando is caning you this season. It's unbelievable. Sad thing is that he looks dejected, or he's trying to keep his spirits up at the same time. It's a bit of a tough one with Danny Ricciardo, because I think he knows deep down this is actually on him now. And he needs to, whatever it is, he just needs to iron it out and get going as well. And I have a feeling, I don't know if you remember the very first day when Danny Ricciardo tested the McLaren, is it the MCL 35M, whatever it's called, or B, or I don't know. But when he tested it in Silverstone, I don't know if you remember, at the very beginning, it was like, when he was sort of giving feedback as to how the car felt, he was a bit like, yeah, I mean, it's going to take some getting used to sort of thing. And I was like, I was concerned, but not too concerned. But now what I'm seeing this season, I cannot believe what my eyes. And that just seems to be his season at the moment. Couple steps forward, couple steps back. Yeah, Danny, sort it out, man. P2 for Danny Ricciardo. P1, ladies and gentlemen, the man who earns 1st place on this podium of the worst driver of the weekend, Esteban Ocon. Why? I like you, Esty, but I need some progression. I need some growth. What is Fernando Alonso doing that you are not doing? Why on earth is this Alpine lagging in the bottom 10? Yeah, even in the bottom, I think 6 or so. We can't be seeing you over there, Esteban. You're a better driver than this, and you're supposed to be like in competition with George Russell for that Mercedes seat and Valtteri Bottas. But you know, we're all talking about George Russell here. We're not talking about Mr. Esteban Ocon. Sort yourself out, Esteban. We need to get that car in better positions. And it's just been a nothing. And when you consider what Alonso is doing, and ever since that new contract that you got at Alpine, I mean, we were thinking that you deserved this, and at the time you did, but now don't undo all the hard work. I mean, come on, get it together, Esteban. And lastly, honorable mention, Mercedes. We need to have a conversation. Simply because what is actually going on? This is the first time, and even Toto Wolff mentioned this, the first time in 8 years that they've looked at themselves and thought, we haven't got the pace. We haven't got the fastest car on the track. 8 years, by the way. So that's telling something, that is saying something. And I've never seen Mercedes look so like they don't know what to do. I've never seen them like this before. This is unbelievable. I cannot believe Mercedes haven't got something else. because they've got to react to Red Bull's strategies. They've got to react to Red Bull's pace because Red Bull are wiping the floor. Today was a telling day. Let me tell you something. The Styrian Grand Prix was telling. In my opinion, I still think Lewis Hamilton will win the title because it's a long, long season ahead. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as he famously mentioned before ditching it in Baku. Never mind. But nonetheless, I mean, you got to respond though. We got to see something. Look, considering all things, second and third, Lewis Hamilton second, Bottas third, not too bad at the end of the day. But the pace is long gone. I mean, Max Verstappen, what was he, 4 or 5 seconds after the first 3 laps ahead of Lewis? It was unbelievable. What's going on? And bear in mind as well, Perez had a terrible pit stop, which is why Bottas got ahead of Perez in the race. And yet, you know, nothing really came off. You know, Perez was still like within half a second behind Bottas come the end of the race. Less than that even. I think Perez even said if I had half a lap more, I would have ditched Bottas as well. So you imagine, like, they've got to respond. They've got to do something, Mercedes. Get your finger out and deal with this situation properly. Toto Wolff said the next couple of days we're going to be scratching our heads, and that's a concern because they don't look like they've got the answers. So Mercedes, have a hard debrief today. That's all I'm going to say. Have the longest debrief of all time, especially because you're going to be back here in Austria for next weekend's race, because you need to do something. I am loving it. Like I said, I am loving seeing competition happen in Formula One. So Max Verstappen and the Red Bull gang, Sergio Perez, keep going. But those, ladies and gentlemen, were my bottom 3 drivers of the race weekend. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my top 3s of both the best and the worst? Please comment down below. Let's have a conversation. It was very, very difficult actually to do the best drivers. And then the bottom 3, I mean, I struggled for 3rd place. Like I was like clutching at straws. Like who else has been awful? But there we go. That is the Styrian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen extends his lead at the championship. 4 wins in a row for Red Bull. Unbelievable scenes, Jeff. We move on to Austria, the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend. Boy, it's going to be interesting. Let's see, will we get the same package as we've had this weekend, or will it be completely different? Will it be a complete mix-up? Maybe some rain? Who knows? With that said, people, lights out.